phlegm decides to start as soon as I decide to talk.
Of course it does.
It does. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Outside the Cinema, your weekly source for cult movie discussion. And I swear, it has been weekly. I don't know what happened with the public feed. Like 4 shows got backed up and didn't release, and no one told me until like the 4th one was supposed to go out.
How did you fix it? I'm curious.
I went in. So what I did was I went into our hosting service, and everything was in there. Everything was in there the way it was supposed to be. For some reason that I can't explain, they weren't released. They were all queued.
Interesting.
So I just went in and changed them and released them. And so if you look on the public feed, it'll say that like 5 episodes were released on like the same day. But yeah, they were all entered and when they were supposed to be. And for whatever reason, I'm thinking there must have been some sort of I don't know, maybe update to the site or something that would have maybe adjusted some of the parameters. Because I don't really change any of that stuff. Like it's just like enter the information, create the art for the show, and then boom, it's supposed to go out. I don't know. I apologize that it didn't get to where it was supposed to, but I didn't get any communication letting me know that stuff wasn't going the way it was supposed to. Josh had sent me a message about there not being anything on Podbean, and I'm like, I don't really know anything about Podbean. It's just one of the ones that the aggregator kicks it out to. So I looked into Podbean and couldn't find anything. But then then when I posted last week's show, the Patreon link in the Facebook group, people were like, "Hey, we haven't gotten a regular episode on the feed for like 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks." And I wish that I could say it was me being like, "Hey, you should sign up for the Patreon," but it wasn't. It wasn't. But I will say this: that everything was available on the Patreon, no problem. I will say that. But it was not done purposely. I actually had somebody that was like, "Yeah, you're probably holding them back to try to get people to sign up." I'm like, "Nah, because it's not. People will just stop listening."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They would definitely go well, fuck them.
If they haven't signed up yet, me holding their hand over the fire is not going to make them sign up.
No, it's just going to make them mad and they leave, like you said.
Right. With that said, though.
Fire. Nobody said
With that said, though, I mean, this is a perfect example of why having a Patreon membership is good, because sometimes shit happens that we're not aware of, we're not privy to, we don't know why it happened, and everything, because I control the Patreon 100%. Like I go on to that and I enter the information, I enter the show, and I release it. So there's no like aggregation of it trying to get out to other places. It's just on the Patreon, and there's a feed on the Patreon that you can, an RSS feed that you can put into your whatever you use for your RSS and put it in there. And you get the shows just like you would normally, only they come from the Patreon feed. So you'd get the new shows early, you get the bonus shows, because we have a music show coming up in a couple weeks. Whatever the Tuesday after Christmas is, we're doing our top albums of the year. More about that momentarily. But yeah, the Patreon, this is a good example, whereas like if something in the public I have no real control over the public one other than I put it onto the aggregator and it's supposed to get out to where it's supposed to get to, and I have no control of it.
Right, you press publish and
and hopefully it ends up where it's supposed to. But patreon.com/outside the cinema. We are doing our yearly top album show. That is, I think we're going to do it live. We're doing it on the Tuesday night after Christmas this year, which is December 27th. I think we could. I mean, I know that Riverside has a really cool live element built into it, where you can have like a virtual studio audience. So, if anyone's interested in that, let me know. I will totally get that up and going, and then send the links to who I need to send to, because I think like we're like live right now on it. But like if you hit like the invite people button, you can invite with the link. And I want to say that there's a spot that allows you to create like an audience portal where there's like a chat room and stuff. So,
okay. Interesting.
But it could be cool. But anyway, it's the 27th. I think we're going to probably start around like 7:30, 8 o'clock. It'll be myself, Melissa, and Bro going over our top 10 albums of the year. It's always a good time. We haven't done a lot of music shows this year just because of timing and being busy and just all the stuff. But the end of year music show is always a pretty good time. Bro will tell Melissa how bad her picks are, and then she'll just basically be like, "Hey, fuck you," and he'll be like,
"I don't give a shit what you think."
Yeah, and then that's what she'll say, and then his response will be like, "All right." So
yeah. Because it doesn't matter what other people think of your music choices; it's what you like.
It does not matter, and also as we have learned, it does not matter what your thoughts are on your movie choices either. This week on the show, as part of the year-end cram session that we are doing, Chris chose Moorehead and Benson's new flick, Something in the Dirt, and my choice was the Netflix found footage flick Incantation from Taiwan. Two films that, I honestly haven't heard much about Something in the Dirt. Like, I didn't feel that one got a whole lot of attention. Incantation.
No, not yet. Yeah. I think it got a bunch of festival stuff, but since it hasn't hit streaming, really, I think people.
Well, it just recently hit streaming, like in the last couple of weeks. I think it's because it's up on Amazon now. But Incantation has gotten a lot of love from places. It's a Netflix original, but again, that's another thing. Like Netflix originals, especially stuff that comes from overseas, it's kind of a misnomer. But a lot of people have talked about that and how it's the best use of found footage in years, and it's on all these top 10 lists and stuff. So we'll dig into that and see if it's truly holding a place for us as it is for others. But yeah, so we're going to be doing new stuff through the end of December. I got a pretty good list together of stuff. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but if I'm missing,
not the whole thing, no. I just
there's like I don't know, like 6 or 7 movies there, but I think I got everything that would be like the stuff that we should make sure we get to at least. So there you have that. I don't have a whole lot of other stuff here at the top of the show. You got anything you want to bring up or mention or?
Not really, no.
I'm trying to think. I thought there was something else I wanted to mention to people, but what is going on over here? Yeah, I thought there was stuff that I wanted to make mention of, but now I can't remember offhand. It's probably something I'll think. I'm sure I'll think of it, but I don't know. Why don't we just? Let's just get into the reviews.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. What do you want to start with?
That doesn't matter to me. It never matters to me unless I'm really hot on one thing.
Well, I guess let's do Something in the Dirt first. Let me find a trailer here. So Benson and Moorehead, they are guys that we've been following for a number of years now, right?
Yeah.
What was the film we did? Which one of their movies did we do earlier this year?
We did The Endless, I think, earlier this year, didn't we?
I can't remember.
Was that the last one?
I mean, I know we've done.
They did Resolution.
Yep, we've done that.
Resolution. There was the Endless, which is loosely connected. There's Synchronic.
I don't think we've done Synchronic. Have we? What's the last one we did on the show? Was the one with the cult?
The UFO Death Cult, right?
Yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah, that was the Endless. Yeah,
that was the Endless. Okay. So that's the last one we did on the show. I know we've talked about their stuff fairly recently. We did Spring not that long ago, or maybe that was.
Oh, Spring. That's the other one they did. Yeah.
Okay, so Spring. We did that.
I just for the life of me, I could not.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually seen Synchronic now that I'm looking at the thing here. I know the soundtrack was done by the band The Album Leaf, whom I love. But yeah, so Aaron Moorehead and was it Anthony? No, not Anthony Benson. Fuck, the hell's his name? Justin Benson. I've been working in the genre film world for a number of years now. They worked on Moon Knight, which is the thing that I think a lot of people have really kind of clasped onto. They had they had a hand on some VHS stuff. I know that they've worked on, I think, upcoming episodes of Loki, if I'm not mistaken, also for the second season. So
it's nice this stuff's branching out.
Yeah, these guys are working. They're working.
Success.
Yeah, they're working.
Yeah.
So here's the trailer to their newest feature, Something in the dirt. That's not the right button. Again, Jesus Christ. Damn it. Oh, now there's going to be an ad.
Yeah, of course. Wouldn't it be funny if it was an ad for the movie you want the trailer for?
No, it's like a Mazda. It's the one with the cute dog, though, where the guy's like, oh, so now I have a dog. And then like he's in the car with the matching sweater with the dog at the end of the ad. I love that commercial. All right, here we go. Jesus, come on. Why is there no audio? Damn it. Man, Scott's damn it. And then the site and then the friggin' app just crashed.
Of course.
I cannot win. Scott's gonna have a field day with this one today, right? Oh man. Why did the app crash?
Yep. To be fair, the trailer is not really helpful.
We'll see. If we ever can get it to play right. There we go.
If we're gonna try to prove the supernatural, we're gonna need some kind of visuals, or people won't believe it.
Start over.
Something happened. But what do we think went wrong? I still believe part of it was real.
This city was designed according to this tablet. Maybe these gateways to other dimensions are actually all around us.
You can couch it in scientific terms, it doesn't really matter. I don't think anything is worth what happened.
Hey, you don't think that has anything to do with what we're doing downstairs?
We're not quite in dangerous, uncharted territory yet.
I'm gonna try to eat it.
I might have this all wrong.
Okay, there we go. Something in the dirt. So this, I've liked their stuff. You're a big fan of their stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this struck me as something a little different, just in the way it's presented, because it's presented sort of in the way of a faux documentary, but also like not at the same time. I actually had a kind of a hard time following their narrative until it kind of started to get explained later into the film. You have any issues with that?
And that's on purpose. You're definitely led down a path, and then you're shown that the path you've been walking on with them is maybe a recreation of the path you thought you were on, with a lot of falsely drawn conclusions, because our main characters are basically dopes.
Yeah. So when neighbors,
and they've pretty much admitted that in interviews. They're like, these two guys, they're not that smart.
So when neighbors John and Levi witness what they believe to be supernatural events in their Los Angeles apartment building, they realize documenting the paranormal could inject some fame and fortune into their wasted lives. An ever deeper, darker rabbit hole, their friendship frays as they uncover the dangers of the phenomenon, the city, and each other. That's actually a decent synopsis, I think, there. But your main characters are Levi Daniel, played by Justin Benson, and John Daniels, played by Aaron Moorehead. They always tend to, in their films, play their leads. And they're pretty good actors, so it's not like They're
Yeah.
these two terrible actors
Yeah.
that are like, well, I'm going to direct the movie and then I'm also going to act in it.
Right.
So it works out pretty good. But this film opens with, we meet Levi, who is kind of a down on his luck bartender that's just moved into an apartment. We know that there's some weird shit going on in his life, but we don't really know too much right off the bat. We are then introduced to John outside. Levi comes out basically to bum a smoke off him, and he's like, hey, they meet. He says, oh yeah, I lived in the apartment for like 10 years. My partner's gone or just recently left. And they basically kind of, introduce, and they are, friendly. Not overly friendly to start, but like enough to get going. But then John tells Levi that
they're talking, but with some of the stuff each of them said, they're both kind of leery of each other.
For sure. And to be expected, because it's a slummy Los Angeles apartment in the bad part of town.
But it's in is it? I don't know. I mean, it's Laurel Canyon. Is that shitty?
It sure feels shitty the way they present it. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, not living there and seeing forest fires and how close the airport is and everything, you get this feeling of like it's already like the beginning of the apocalypse, because there's a plane and it's kind of wagging it's kind of dipping its wings in either direction as it flies over black smoke coming up out of the mountains, and they're just having a normal conversation, and I'm like, all right, something's either normal or weird. I don't know. Yeah,
well, I have a number of friends that live out there, and we have a family of a family that used to live like a couple doors down from us that has moved out there to LA, and basically they would send us photos and video of like what the forest fires were like last year, and like these fires were like in their backyard, like type stuff of like it's like the apocalypse. It really is like insane, like driving down the highway.
Oh, at that point, I think it is. Your whole world is burning down.
Right, yeah. There's like photos, like them like sending us videos like driving down the highway and the entire embankment on the side of the highway is just on fire.
I mean, it's awesome in like not the New England way of meaning awesome to see that, but to know that people experience that is something completely different. It's fascinating to look at, is what I'm saying.
Correct. And this film is fascinating to look at because it's shot in a number of different ways. It's shot with a number of different cameras, different aspect ratios, different quality. It's this attempt for them to kind of make this movie where they're going to talk about conspiracy theories. And I feel like it's definitely poking fun at a number of different things. And one of them, I think it's poking at the absurdity of conspiracy theories just in general.
Right.
Because it all starts... go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it all starts with just this weird glass ashtray that he finds that creates this light fractural thing in his apartment, and then it starts to float, and from there, they just kind of go.
Yeah. They start with the fractal golden spiral looking thing, and it's kind of what I wish they had have done in Prometheus. And this is going to sound weird for a second, but as they're flying in, right, you got Idris Elba's character who's like, "Oh, this is a military installation," and it's like, dude, you are looking at alien architecture on a moon that's not even their primary homeworld, and you're gonna guess based on your limited knowledge of the human race's accomplishments. I wanted him to be wrong, and in this movie, these two dummies are wrong about everything they assume, and that's what I really like. They assign meaning to stuff that only has meaning to them, which is the definition of a conspiracy theory. But you watch it in not real time, but you watch it grow and evolve into this huge, all-consuming thing, and I think that's really smart on their part, because they did this during lockdown, so it was a small production, 12 people. Total, So
and it doesn't even, when you watch it, it doesn't even seem like you could have told me that it was just the two of them and nobody else, and I would have been like, yeah, okay, because it definitely has.
You could have told me it was 100 people, and I would have said fine. You know, but they really know how to put every dollar up on the screen when they're doing this stuff.
For sure, yeah. So what's interesting about this film is they start to look at this light fractal thing that's going on, and then they start to go down this rabbit hole of other things. They start to make connections with different symbols that are found. There's something going on with the closet in the apartment, and they really just kind of go off the deep end pretty quickly with, well, this isn't a supernatural thing. Oh, it's a gate, a dimensional gate to another land or another world,
yeah,
or
sure.
another, and they just go with it.
Yeah, because that's what they want it to be. They want it to be important, right?
Yeah, it's so funny though, because like as the film goes on, and this is it starts much like their other films, where I'd say the first 50 minutes to an hour, not really a whole lot happens. Resolution was like that. The Endless was like that too, whereas like you're given enough to keep you interested. And I was definitely in their stuff, like in general and including this film, it keeps my interest because I'm very much like, what is happening? What's going on? But you get halfway through this film, and I mean, I guess this is a minor spoiler, but like it's only halfway into the flick. We get that line where they're interviewing somebody else and they're talking about things, and they're basically trying to push him to, say, yeah, this happened or whatever. And then he's just basically, the guy that they're interviewing, who is like a scientist or whatever, says something along the lines of, well, you guys are pushing a narrative here. And they're like, oh, well, we don't think blah, 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 blah. When he goes, oh, if that were true, why did you guys play yourselves in the recreations? And then you're like, oh, shit. Everything that we've seen.
Right, because that's the... Yeah. Yeah.
I was very much
and that's why these guys are brilliant, because it's such a small thing, but it changes the whole movie.
It completely changes the whole movie, because then I started dialing back in my head and thinking about how every time we saw something happened, it was the professional footage shot really well. So you were like, oh, none of this might have happened. All of it may have happened.
Right.
Some of it may have happened.
Right.
But we're being told by that narrator now that is basically running his own agenda.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really smart move, because let's be honest, a lot of the shit they're spouting doesn't make sense. But then when you know that they're telling their side of the story and only their side of the story, it all makes sense.
And they're trying to monetize it and make it more interesting than it really is. It all kind of falls into place, doesn't it? And you're like, oh, but then something happens and you're like, but wait, how could they do the recreations if this event happened?
Right.
And then I'm confused, and then I love the movie more. Because that's not an accident. That's not an oversight.
Right.
These guys, I really think I have never been left with wanting more from what they've done. They explain everything, and I think, not to steal one of their titles, but the resolutions of their films are they pretty much always tie up pretty well. This one hasn't tied up for me yet.
No, for the most part. And that was the thing with this one that I thought was really interesting, was that they didn't, give you that satisfaction at the end of what really happened. But it ties into their world too, though. So it's the type of thing where it's like all of their stuff lives in the same universe. At least their features all lives in this universe. Because there's stuff that, like, if you're paying attention, there's little Easter eggs that will tie back to The Endless and the other films.
Yeah. And the great thing about their movies is they're all so individually personal to the people in them. There's really no way, like, anybody would have heard of this, 2,000-year-old monster living in Italy. that's disguised as a woman. It can all be in the same. It can all be a supernatural world, and if it all does exist within the same world, then though that guy, the guy that's left over, he could prove it if they follow up.
Yeah. It's really it's quite interesting. I think overall though, this one in comparison to the other films hit a little less for me, and I don't know if it was just the presentation of it. Really, I felt kind of made it a little bit tougher. I mean, you know me, I don't have a problem with something looking cheap as shit, but it's the back and forth and the up and down, and we'll talk about this a little bit, I think, when we talk about the other flick tonight too, of like, you know, getting into a lane and kind of rolling with that. Like, it's easy for me to say that, and I understand like the, you know, well, this is supposed to be actual footage and this is supposed to be professional recreation footage, but like at the same time, I'm kind of like, I get such an uneven, not I shouldn't say an uneasy, but an uneven feel from the presentation that I'm like even more confused by what's going on, because at the end of the day, I mean, nothing might have happened. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing could be made up.
Yeah, if this was the real world, I would imagine that they got stoned and they saw it reflect the light at sunset, because they do talk later about why the movie studios were built there, because of the light, the golden hour light. And that's pretty much when the sun was coming through and hitting the quartz ashtray. So it could just be their imagination. They're looking for a way to profit off of it. So yeah, we're going to say that it does more than it does. It's just a crystal that, you know, threw an interesting pattern on the wall.
Right.
A skeptic would say.
Right.
When it comes to what happens in movies, I'm not a skeptic. In real life, I am. But here, I'm willing to entertain other ideas.
I think bringing the other the sit down interview parts is an interesting piece to this story, because like they have a doctor and then they have like a guy that, you know, they have like 3 or 4 guys that they're talking to, and none of them really back up like what the story they're telling is. But what also is interesting is that if you're taking this, and again, this is something we'll talk about with the other film tonight too, if you're taking this at face value that it's supposed to be a documentary, who edited it? Because
they talk to an editor, don't they?
They do, but like this version of the film you're watching, whose version of the film is this? Like, because there's a number of times where the interviewees, they talk to them and they say things that basically will contradict everything that's been said before it, and it's left in the cut. They do talk, but there's a point where they talk to an editor, and the editor says, "I understand after watching this why they've had 15 different editors." And I'm assuming that. So my assumption in watching it was that basically they had brought it to a number of people that wouldn't edit it into the narrative that they wanted, and then somebody just leaked it out. Whatever the last cut was or whatever, like somebody leaked out what that cut was, because it doesn't tell the clear story that they're trying to communicate, but it also doesn't disprove it either.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Which
also, I think you may be overlooking one thing. If there's 15 different editors, then the style of it and the feel of it's going to be all over the place. So that could be your reason why it feels disjointed.
Yeah, I mean, I could buy that, but I mean, anyone that's a good editor is gonna work a thing so that it runs coherently. Not that this is incoherent, because I think there's points that are incoherent but it's done very purposely. But like any editor's not gonna like. That's the thing that's interesting, I think, is that they're like, we had 15 editors, because any decent editor is going to put their stamp on it, and you're going to watch it and you're going to be like, okay, this is coherent, which makes complete sense, because they're like 15 different editors worked on it and nobody wants to really fucking work on it because they're not going to tell the story that these guys want. It's interesting. I thought it was an interesting kind of like just taking everything at complete like skepticism, like questioning everything. It's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, yeah. Would those people want their names attached to this kind of project? I mean, that's just another thing to consider. Like if they see if a guy comes up and says, "Hey, I got a floating crystal and it's gonna break everybody's brain, so let's make a movie about it," and then you're like, "Okay, show me this." He's like, "All right, you got to ignore. We're gonna take out all of the fishing line in post, so ignore that." Yeah, it could have been. It could. I mean, 15 people. You got everything: artistic differences, just moral, ethical differences, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not uncommon in Hollywood and in the industry to have multiple editors work on a project. I mean,
yeah,
the documentary we're working on now, technically, I guess we have 3 editors, or we have 2 editors currently. We're going to have a third editor to like. So basically, like Kyle runs as like my main editor. And then I'm also editing sections. And then the plan is when we have a cut, we take that cut and then give it to another editor to basically not have it be 3 hours anymore. Like being like, hey, you need to trim the fat out of this because we can't figure it out. But so it's not uncommon to have multiple editors working on projects, different people, different sequences. Right. I'm sure in big budget productions like Marvel films or anything like that, there's probably, I don't know offhand, but like 25, 30 editors working on different sequences at any point. Like the idea that one
Not
person...
to mention then, I mean, you have the directors of everything too. Like you don't want to waste footage on CG fights and stuff. So you kind of have to have editing in mind as you're directing those shots from your storyboard, because all of it's a huge waste of time to film something you're never going to use.
Right, exactly. Anything else you want to add here before we grade?
No, I can add my final thoughts on that.
Let's hit the button then. All right, Chris, do you recommend, and what is your grade for Something in the Dirt?
I am going to recommend this. So far, I haven't come across any of their stuff that I think needs to be, people need to be warned to stay away from. So far, these guys in Del Toro maybe are the only directors who, when I hear they're working on something, I'm like, oh, I wonder what it's going to be. And I'm interested. Because if somebody says, oh, Scorsese's making another movie, you're like, okay, so De Niro will be busy for a little while, and it's more gangsters. But with these guys, all you know is it's going to be sci-fi.
Right.
And that's it. And that's what I love. The anticipation of sitting down to watch this may have been more enjoyable than watching it, but I feel that way a lot with movies. I think the anticipation's way better. Yeah, I can't. This is definitely one. I feel like the Endless that I'm going to go back and watch a few times. But the Endless, for instance, is a much more straightforward movie. Mm-hmm. It's a mystery, but it's very clearly told to you what's going on. This one is not. So if you get frustrated by that, be ready. But yeah, I can't think of a single thing that these guys have done that hasn't made me go, yeah, okay, I want to see more.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
Oh, so I'm going to give this a B because I've only watched it once.
Okay.
I need to dig into it now to be able to pull out the stuff I got from the other movies like that and The Void and other movies like that, because there's a lot more going on here than the surface.
For sure.
And now I'll stop.
So a B. Okay. I didn't like it nearly as much as you. I have enjoyed their other work. I think it's always interesting. It's not always what you expect. Actually, I should say most of the time it's not what you expect it to be. But I do love their style and the way that they bring things out. I found with this, it was a little too much of not doing anything with what they had. But that's not to say that I disliked it. I just didn't love it. I wasn't. I wanted more. And then when you get the reveal that like you have, maybe you have a narrator that's telling you a story that's not necessarily what actually happened. I loved that part of it, and I kind of almost wish it had opened up a little bit more. Because I mean, we love found footage stuff here at the show, and we talk about it all the time, and we love the faux documentary stuff. And this played by someone's rules, but the problem was those rules were never told to us, so we don't really know who's telling the story, what where it's coming from, how we got it. So it was a little weird for me to kind of get on board. But with that said, I think there's some really cool ideas going on in this. I love that they, maybe it's all real or maybe it's all bullshit. I love that, and I love that you don't know for sure. When you get that ending where you're just that kind of like what the fuck ending part, which I won't give away. I was like, okay, but why? And then they don't tell you. and it works out quite good. So I'm going to give it a straight C. In terms of the Benson Moorehead stuff, it's not my favorite. It's probably below Endless, below Spring, probably below, was it Retribution or Resolution?
Resolution. Yeah.
Resolution. It's probably my least favorite of the 3 or 4 that they've done. But with that said, I think, there's definitely good stuff in it. It's not something that I'm going to be like, no, I'll never revisit this. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I'm probably going to watch it again within a week.
That's fair. And you know what? I can see and appreciate why. But yeah,
it's they are my kind of movie makers.
For sure.
Definitely.
For sure. It's fun, and it's funny too how we'll talk about like, I want answers. I don't want answers. Give me more. No, it's too much. Like, but it all. I mean, it's a flick.
It really depends. Yeah, it depends how it's presented to you. Really, I mean, That's. I'm trying to process what you said and come up with the answer at the same time, because I've never thought about what movies demand answers, my brain demands answers from, and what doesn't.
Right. It's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I was fine with, these guys have no idea what's going on, so there's no chance I'm going to know what's going on. That's what it was. You had said they're not playing, you don't know what rules they're playing by, which is a brilliant thing, because they don't know whose rules they're playing by. They're making it up. They think it's their rules, but it's whatever is flashing the lights in the closet, or making the thing float, or playing Ode to Joy, or put the Morse code inside that thing. Like, there's one point where they get coordinates, and the coordinates can be one flipped, one could be first or second. And one of them leads them to a place pretty close by, which is convenient, right?
Yep.
And the other one leads them to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, like the most remote area away from.
Yeah. Point
Nemo?
Yeah. Point Nemo. Which is the real life, literally the most remote spot on the entire planet. It's like,
now, don't you think go ahead.
I was going to say it's over 1,000 miles from any other landmass, and there's no and it's literally the most remote. Like, it's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, but it's the point where it is like further away from civilization. They said it's the only point. I did research on Point Nemo at one point, that it's the only point on the planet where the astronauts in the International Space Station are closer than anybody else.
Oh, yeah, huh?
That's how remote it is.
Huh. Now, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you have some kind of mystical interdimensional object, which place do you think would give you better answers? The one that's conveniently close?
Yeah.
Or the one that is Lovecraftianly impossible to get to?
Yep.
And I think they just shoot themselves in the leg because of their lack of ability to do anything except really local shit.
Yeah, and they have no idea what they're doing, and watching them try to figure it out is actually quite humorous.
I love
sad.
it. I love an incompetent group of main characters. You know, they're not assholes. They just really want to break out of this rut they're in.
Yep, for sure.
And of course, you're going to want to do it the quickest and easiest way possible. All right. So the more I talk about it, the more the movies make it sense to me. So, all right, we can continue now.
All right, fair. So moving on to our second feature for this week is the Netflix original Incantation, original title Zhao. This is a Taiwanese horror film, found footage in nature, and it's absolutely found footage. It's not, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, let's play the trailer. I'm curious. I actually didn't watch the trailer beforehand here, but I'm curious if it's that. Well, we'll see.
你们相信祝福吗？其实我们都在不知不觉中相信我们的意志可以带来好的结果。这是我们在新家的第一天。再不睡觉的话，怪物就要来烧你的痒痒。没有啊，坏坏在哪里？
就是在上面，你再就下来。
你下来哦，快点下来，坏坏！
你牵到它才会出去。再上面一点。
这样牵到了吗？
牵到。
我6年前曾经触犯了可怕的禁忌。
你是在翕什么哦？
拍谁？
这个不能够进去的地道，导致你周遭的人都发生了不幸，是吗？这个神明，你了解的越多，就越容易发生不幸。
那里面到底是什么？里面有提到那句咒语的意思。
阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，请帮我跟邪恶结缘。
你喜欢这个妈妈吗？你不觉得她很奇怪吗？
Alrighty, Incantation, which is Kevin Ko, the scariest film from Taiwan ever, supposedly. Available to watch on Netflix in the United States. I'm not sure what its release information is in other parts of the world. But I will say this. If you watch it in the United States or North America, do yourself a favor. Before the film even starts, turn off the dub. Turn the dubbing off, because the dub in this... I made the mistake of watching the first, half hour of this movie with the English dub. And it takes so much away from it. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Did you happen to? How did you watch it?
Here's how I watched it. I listened to this. Okay, so Dodo's home now, and I need to feed her. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Did you record your audio in a soundproof room? There is no room noise. There's no ambient sound to these voices. They sound too close and too warm to the microphone. I switched over, and everybody in the room with me stood up and clapped. No, I mean, everybody in the room said that sounds natural now because it was like they were NPRing really close to the microphone for the dub.
With
I made it about 10 minutes and I'm like, fuck this.
I went further than that because for some reason it didn't dawn on me. And I always watch films with the subtitles on usually anyway, even if it's an English film a lot of times. And
yeah. Well, this one starts off dubbed, right? I mean, you can't help it. You got to and switch it.
In Netflix, it defaults to the English dub.
That's the word I was.
But I had the subtitles on too, and it was so frustrating because what was being said on screen didn't match the subtitles. Names were pronounced differently. Yeah. Different things were said. And it was. I know it's the nuances of the translation, but it was bad. So do yourself a favor if you're going to watch this movie on Netflix, before it starts, switch off the English dubbing and watch it with subtitles because it is a far better experience that way. All right. 6 years ago, Lee Ronan was cursed after breaking a religious taboo. Now she must protect her daughter from the consequences of her actions. So Incantation is presented in a found footage narrative with her filming different things, other people filming different things, apparently phantom cameras filming other things, cameras that didn't exist filming other things, and also there's a score. We talk a lot about found footage flicks on the show, and we ourselves are pretty critical of things sometimes. We talked about it a little bit with the other film, but it didn't really work with the other film because we're not given a set of rules. In this, we're given a set of rules that she is documenting all of this so that people will know what happened to her and what happened to her daughter. But the problem is you have footage coming from all of these other places that, there's no real explanation as to where this footage is coming from, where it's being shot, who gave it to her, how she got it. We get security footage, security camera footage from the hospital. We get security camera footage from the police. We get, returned cameras that were lost. We get where is all of this coming from?
Yeah. I just gave up and went with it. I stopped thinking about it.
There was points where I tried to do that, and I to a point was able to, but at the same time, I was just kind of we'll see them holding a camera, and then there's three other angles in the room, but we know that the person's by themselves in the room. So she's part of this ghost hunter group that they call the Ghostbusters. And
that's a good name.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of catchy. And so they're going to this trying to go to this ancient temple that's buried underground. There's this tunnel that you're not supposed to go into. It's a forbidden tunnel. But they're going there because I've heard there's ghosts. So at least at this point, they've got GoPros on their shirts and stuff, and they're each holding cameras. So I'm okay, there's a point here. But then they just kind of throw all of it away and just give you these angles that there's no way that anybody shot this. And then when the music is, I think, the thing that bugs me the most.
That always does, and it makes sense. Yeah.
And again, there's so many ways to fix this and just be a thing at the beginning of
we went through 15 editors.
Yeah, right. Seriously. Or Lee Ronan turned this footage into the authorities. We've done our best to recreate what we believed happened using other sources that became available or something like that. But you don't get any of that, and you're just meant to believe that she did this.
I mean, all she had to say was at the end when you realize the whole point of this movie or whatever, thing. I'm trying not to give anything away. When all she would have to say is, I added music to make it watchable, and now you know why. And I would have been, no, all right.
That makes sense.
Just a reason.
For sure. So
we're big on that.
Very big
Just
on that.
one sentence.
All it takes. All it takes. So, we watch a decent amount of Asian horror on the show. Taiwan, we don't get a lot of stuff from Taiwan. There's some good stuff there for sure, but this is kind of like the first one in a while that really hit, and a lot of people are really into this flick, and a lot of people are like, it's very scary. I will give this flick the tension and the creep factor for sure. I don't think I loved it.
Yeah.
I think I liked it.
I have to go with you on that.
I think I liked it. But again, I think a lot of that comes from the fact that, like, whatever this narrative is that we're being given, like, when you watch found footage stuff, you're supposed to be able to take it at, face value with what you're given with the flick. But this one, like, goes back and forth in timelines and, like, which at first was confusing because I'm watching a found footage flick.
Right.
And it's not like there's no like it's not like a finished documentary like Something in the Dirt. It's not like we don't have like interviews and like somebody went back and edited or someone went back and edited, films in, but so we are introduced to her. She's trying to get her daughter back. We know that she's been through hell. There's something going on, and then we're shown what happened piece by piece from old tapes. But I'm like, I don't know where it came from.
Right.
So I had a hard time buying into it.
Right. There is an easy way to fix that, but I can't really bring it up without spoiling the entire end of the movie.
And that's fair, and that's something we can talk about maybe later on at some point. But
I'll tell you if I remember after.
Oh, fair. So the whole film is based on the fact that these people went into this sacred place that they weren't supposed to go and broke these religious rules and basically cursed themselves.
Yeah.
And now she is basically
as you
trying
do.
to, as you've been known to do, because I'm a big proponent of if you go into a religious place and things are like tied off with like ribbons and different things with different, runes and things that are written on there and blocking passages. Like, yeah, you probably don't go there.
Oh, see, I read that and I turn into Bender from Futurama and I think this doesn't apply to me. And I just barge right through.
So the whole point is the curse. She's been cursed and she's trying to get away. But then she also kind of moves it on to her daughter, and it's not real clear, to be honest. And maybe did I miss some clarity with it?
No, it's purposely made and edited out of order, I think, to keep you guessing on what is essentially kind of a basic story.
Well, yeah, it's a curse story. That's all it is.
Yeah. No more or less complex than The Ring when you think about it.
When you boil it down, it's the same thing. It's the same.
So, but that's that. I wouldn't hold that against the movie.
No.
Curses are, how do you make them individual? You got Poltergeist, The Ring, and The Grudge. There you go.
Yeah, and when we talk Asian horror films, I mean, you always have the scare factor of not living in that tradition and not living in that region and not knowing, the folk stories and the religious aspect of it. And that's, I think, where this film is hitting for people in the States, is that it's very foreign and it feels very foreign when you watch it. Those folk, like the Chinese folk religion stuff of like possession and demons and, curses and, prayers to hold things in and toilet ghosts and all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The Chuksa can do a number on you. So, but it's really interesting too, though, because they go to when they show the Ghostbuster stuff and they go to the old village and the religious fanatics that are there. Like, that's the scariest stuff out of it. Was we don't know what consequences there are for messing with these rituals. There's a lot of talk of like sacrifice and all these different things and these different characters. But for me, as I was watching it and it was kind of like playing itself out, I was actually pretty confused as to like who was cursed and like why were they cursed and like
right.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Am I off base?
I think there's a cultural rift here that is stopping us from understanding how bad curses are, because curses are kind of a joke over here, aren't they, to normal people?
I mean, for the most part, it's not something in. I mean, and the major religions in the U.S., whether it's Christianity or one of the other major religions that are practiced here, like that's not like there's no curses. Like
no, you get the evil eye, some other stuff, but it's so curses are, to me, kind of silly, but that's what I had to overcome,
right.
in order
right.
to get through it. But even like, I guess the newest one we have would have been It Follows, and that was a curse that was not based on religion. So I don't know. Did that? It's based off something that most.
I mean, it could be based off religion. No, we
experience.
don't know. We don't know.
Well, that's true, and I hope that they never tell us, because
we'll
it's
never
better
know.
that way.
Yeah, we'll never know that.
Well, I don't trust any theater, movie studio, not theater. But yeah, the whole idea, and you got that symbol, and it's building to something, and at the end, it's like, well, I just don't care. I don't care about Dodo at all.
Or if you
Like,
watch the
she's
dub version,
not-
Toto.
That's true. She just never. She was never a fully fledged character. It felt like.
No, yeah, it was like she was
she
brought
was
into
just-
the fold and then just kind of thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, she was just there to, when something needed to happen, she was the catalyst to make it happen, and it was kind of like, I mean, she wasn't a bad actress. She wasn't awful.
She did what she was supposed to.
Yeah, it was fine. She just wasn't given much to do, and the movie is
Nobody
literally
was.
about her. So
Nobody was, even the main character. Like, there was just confusion that ran rampant in this, and like characters would come into the fold and then immediately be like taken out.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. For a film that ran 110 minutes, it didn't seem like a whole lot happened.
Yeah, it was pretty long.
It felt longer than it actually was. It was under 2 hours, but it sure felt like a 2.5 hour flick when I was watching it.
That is true.
I do have to say though that the elements that they use to kind of build the tension in this, I thought was super work. Like, it worked really well for like the feeling that they were given, especially those scenes like when they were like going in the tunnel, or the scenes where like they were driving up the road, and there's this part where they're driving up the road and all of a sudden things just start to repeat, and it's like they're just driving in a circle. I mean that was pretty cool. And they do a good job of building tension for sure. But unfortunately for me, that tension didn't really necessarily build to a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, because it was essentially, all right, that's done. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how, listener, but that is how the movie ends. Literally, a couple of surprises that aren't really surprising, and then a big old thumbs up. I kind of wish it didn't have a neat ending. All tied up nice and neat. I kind of wish it just didn't. I don't know.
Yeah. And I hate to go back to it again, but the editing in this is just really frustrating to me, because I don't, again, it's another one where like we're being presented with something, but then we're having like, title graphics like put into the middle of it, explaining like different chapter breaks and stuff. And I'm like, well, who did this? Like, where, like,
yeah, but but at the end, it makes sense to have the chapter breaks with the writing and the symbols and everything they put up on the screen, but it's kind of too late at that point to explain why you're doing it.
It's not even
You know
the
what I
why.
mean?
I'm like, for me, it's the who. It's the who, because
Yeah.
at least with something in the dirt, you understand
Right.
why it doesn't coherently make sense the way that you would think it would. But in this, there's none of that, and I get
Yeah.
really frustrated when you have angles and different cameras, and like the camera that she's holding that she shot her footage on is a Sony ZV-1, which is the camera I used in my studio. Like the camera you're looking at me now, same exact camera.
Okay.
Why does my camera look so much better than what she was using?
Well, that's a good question.
It was frustrating. I was really frustrated with this movie. I understand why people are loving it, and I get it.
Yeah.
But I think I just don't agree. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, anything else you want to say? Should we grade?
Yeah, we could do that. That's fine.
All right. All right, then, Christopher, my good, handsome friend.
Oh, thank you.
Do you recommend, and what is your grade for Incantation?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna recommend it, but kind of weakly. It's better than that other one we did with the idiots in the rundown apartment building.
What?
Remember that one? It was the Japanese guy and the Korean guy.
Oh,
and,
yeah. That we did that fairly recently.
yeah, and the rape that propelled the plot forward. Like, thanks.
Yeah, that movie was not good.
Fucking movie. It was better than that. But excuse me, but it had that kind of feel because a lot of the modern areas where they were living is all cement construction and stuff like that. So it's got that feel, but then God, I'm so bored thinking of the movie. But there are some absolutely amazing first person shots of the village just lit up by flashlight, going through all the little areas that they have to search. That was tense. That was really well done. I really enjoyed those parts. But then when we had to save the kid, I didn't give a shit.
Right.
Because I didn't understand the importance of it. Like, you did the ceremony, but also like it's too much. There's not, you know what? We needed somebody to sit down and explain the curse. Like she's an idiot to the camera.
Right.
You know? You call in your doctor or your Hell House dude with the big beard or just somebody to just talk a little bit, which is what in
or
the
even
dirt
one of the
did.
village elders could have played that role and explained, like,
Yeah.
well, if you break this, if you go into the tunnel, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
Or somebody
Right.
like used to live there that doesn't live there anymore. Or like, then the guy, because like the other guy like ends up flying to like India or whatever it was to look at the runes, and I'm like, there's no need for this. Like,
Right. What about an old dude living down there who said, "You done fucked up now"? Like that would have been enough too. Like, hey, all right, I fucked up. Shit. But this just like I watched this with Nova, and I said after, I'm like, you know, the story was fine. I said, but I think that you'll notice different countries have different approaches to storytelling. This one isn't linear. I said, you watch Italian movies, usually there's a part in the middle where they go on vacation while they're being murdered. Obviously a joke, but that happens a lot.
right? I know what you're saying.
I said, so different countries and different cultures will develop storytelling methods that are different from what we know, and I think that is a lot of what we had in this. A lot of first non-linear storytelling, but we needed a handle on what the curse was, what was going to happen, and that's definitely cultural. Like if this was The Exorcist, no problem. I got it. I know about that stuff, or anything like that. I think it was just too foreign for it to really grab a hold of me.
Right.
The curse idea, not obviously Taiwan.
Right. As a country.
So I'm just gonna go with a C. It was fine, but it did feel too long. Like, all right, we should be done by now.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I am going to recommend it. I think, and I'm going to recommend it a little bit higher than you, but not drastically. I think there was definitely some cool stuff going on in this, and I think what really would have made this movie hit for me more so would have been editing it down to about a 90-minute runtime, fleshing out just a couple of the little aspects. There was whole side things that could have just been dropped in this that wouldn't necessarily have affected the kind of final outcome of where we get to, because it really kind of essentially ends up exactly where you're going to expect it to end up. So
Yeah.
I think, that would have made a big difference. But with that said, there was some really cool stuff done with the handheld footage, like you said. There's some really cool scenes when they're in the tunnel where like the hands are coming out of all the walls and stuff. And there's some good practical effects, I think, with like the bed sores and like some things that are, genuinely very much like, oh, okay, gross. But I don't think it's this like this barn burner that some people are making it out to be. I think it's very interesting, and I think it has really strong points, but overall it doesn't hit the way I wanted it to. So I'll give it a C plus, and it's like C plus with a question mark, if that makes any sense. Because there's some cool stuff. There's definitely some cool stuff going on. But again, I mean, you lose an entire letter grade just for including a score in a found footage flick. So
yeah,
there you have it.
Yeah. In something like, I know the first time that I remember you bringing up cameras that didn't exist and stuff was Frankenstein's Army.
Oh, but that was like a literal like the film cameras that they made the movie with didn't exist in the time period.
Oh,
this
of course.
This was much more like they didn't put a camera there, so where did they get that shot? Like,
right. And I honestly, I am way more forgiving of a movie like Frankenstein's Army because, like, just look at it. It's ridiculous.
For sure. For sure.
More than, they want it to look nice. I'll give you that. Okay, fine. You're going to fool me into thinking it's an 8mm or 16, whatever camera. Fine. But they never set up a shot where there wasn't a camera.
Right.
So I'm more forgiving for that because I don't want it to look like, 3 minutes of battlefield footage and then you had to reload the camera. So, that one I'm okay with.
Right.
This one, not.
No
score.
100%.
And we just watched Deadstream, where he figured out how to put music live into his broadcast with a fucking tape player.
Yeah.
And I
brilliant.
loved it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That movie gets better.
No.
With every single found footage movie that I watch, Deadstream gets better because it did all of those things properly. And every movie I've watched since then does them poorly.
Deadstream is so stupid, but such a smart movie.
Brilliant. If you haven't watched it yet, you got to make sure you do.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, if I am not mistaken, it is the final week of Child's Play.
I can never remember.
We'll find out. Let's see what Joe says.
Well, hello, Bill. Hello, Chris. And hello, OTC Nation. It's your boy Joe here. And this week, Bill definitely didn't take me back to Chicago, but more on that later, because he made me watch Child's Play 2019, the one everybody loved. I know that people have been sick to death of remakes and reboots for so long now that it's become a cliche, and I'm right there with you. On a normal day, I would have just ignored this movie. I wasn't really that big of a Child's Play fan before, and changing the one interesting gimmick you had in your movie and replacing it with something unoriginal and quite frankly boring kind of sealed the deal for me never wanting to watch this. Even today. But Bill's maniacal whims must be satisfied, and so I must watch this movie. Remember all the way back to last week's review? Those were the halcyon days, weren't they? So young, so carefree. I remarked that I bet the writers of Cult of Chucky thought they were coming up with some brilliant, mind-bending thriller type shit, and I bet they still do because they turned it into a successful TV show. I guess the TV show is based on, the events of Curse and Cult of Chucky. I've heard the show is great, and honestly, I'll probably give it a try soon. But that won't change the fact that Cult of Chucky had all the organization of a group of coked-up third graders remodeling a bathroom. Give little Bobby a bump of Peruvian jumping powder and a reciprocating saw, and watch the fun. Hey there, Susie. Have some booger sugar and try to disconnect this compression fitting without flooding the room. Shit, I just think I came up with a more entertaining movie than the one I'm about to watch.
Seriously.
But, back to my point. I bet when they presented the idea for Chucky to be a try-hard AI instead of a serial killer's disembodied soul, all the suits patted each other on the back and lit their cigars with papers for their upcoming sexual harassment litigation suits. Never even stopping to think that this idea has been around since at least 1968 with 2001: A Space Odyssey. The most boring, successful movie I've ever seen. Until now. Spoilers. As if anybody cared. A pissed-off Chinese sweatshop worker removes all of the behavioral inhibitors from this one My Buddy doll, or I think it's just Buddy doll, before shipping it off to the U.S. and jumping to his death. Maybe after his shift, they were going to make him watch Seed of Chucky, and he just couldn't fucking take it. We all have our limits, I've come close to mine recently. Borrowing a lot from the OG... I'm just kidding, Bill. Borrowing a lot from the OG Child's Play. Aubrey Plaza is a single MILF to a shitty kid. Not quite as shitty as the OG Andy, but, she works at like a Walmart knockoff and swipes a refurbished, returned My Buddy doll for her 13-year-old son. Think about how overjoyed you would have been at 13 to get for your birthday a doll. Not a cool action figure, not tickets to a wrestling show, not even an OnlyFans subscription to your sex worker of choice. A doll. Even one of the best voiceover actors of all time, Mark Hamill, sounds bored as fuck here. And you know what, Mark? That makes two of us. We're half an hour in, and all we've gotten so far is that Andy sucks. But he's a 13-year-old boy, so we really can't hold that against him. Aubrey Plaza seems like she doesn't know how the fuck to play this. So she's just being Aubrey Plaza. She's dating a button-down, watch football and drink beer on a Sunday guy who's a total dick, which is the most off-brand Aubrey Plaza thing I can imagine. Chucky strangles the family cat, and Andy doesn't immediately set the doll on fire, making Andy the real villain of the piece here. In case you can't tell, this whole thing has been trash so far. Aubrey Plaza's boyfriend turns out to be a married suburban dad with kids, and she's his side piece. They're obviously trying to make this look like Chicago with the downtown area, and he's out in the suburbs, and this all very much looks like Chicago, but he's hanging Christmas lights, and there's no snow. This looks like Chicago in late April, not mid-December. So this either takes place in the near future when we'll experience the heat death of our planet and they're just not talking about it, or they gave even less of a fuck making this than I am watching it. Either way, this guy left his rototiller out and it runs over his face in honestly a pretty good death scene. Notable, though, is that he has a regular-ass suburban yard, maybe 1/4 of an acre. And he bought way too big of a tiller for this property. Too bad for his face. I'll give them this. They didn't have me at all in the first 2 acts. Not even a little bit. While I was, paying attention, I guess, and I followed the story, I also checked my stocks. I browsed some Blu-rays on various sites, and I scrolled through Reddit. However, and spoilers, when Chucky takes over the system for the whole, I guess Walmart-esque store during the launch for the Buddy 2 doll, and it goes and just absolutely goes fucking bonkers, this movie actually gets pretty good. Like the last, I'll say 20 minutes of this movie is actually really good. Now, I'm not saying that there's a correlation between Chucky being an incel white male doll who has trouble making friends and relating to people, and him gleefully massacring a bunch of people. I'm just saying. Well, I am actually saying that. I'm not just saying, I'm actually saying that. But yeah, Act 3 here with the massacre at the store and Chucky explaining what he feels because he's an AI and he's learning, and the kid saving his friends and the final confrontation and all that whatnot. Like, if they had matched this tone and energy, or at least set it up better, this movie could have been pretty good. Like, the third act made you think, like, what the fuck were you doing in the first two acts? Like, it could have been good. Here's the thing. The good. Brian Henry, as the cop who lives down the hall, steals the show. Look him up. You'll know his face. He's been in a lot of stuff. Stand-up comic. He's really good. He steals this whole fucking movie. And they actually made the Chucky doll look creepy, like from the get-go. The bad.
That's true.
I used to get infuriated when crowds at wrestling shows would chant boring, boring, boring at matches that were trying to tell a story. But if I had been in the test audience for this, knowing the producers were there, I would have made direct, unflinching eye contact with them and chanted boring for the entire hour and 37, well, okay, the last 20 minutes, for the first hour and 17 minutes of this film. Child's Play 2019, unfortunately, pass-fail does not pass. Mercifully, that's it for me in the Chucky movies. So, Bill, what's next, my dude?
Oh, man. I think we're going to do Amityville Horror.
Oh, no.
All right, OTC Nation, you probably heard my laptop closing there. All right, OTC Nation, you heard the man. I'll be back with that next week. Until then, be good, everyone.
All right, so Joe, the Amityville Horror series, there's a bunch of stuff. You're allowed to use your discretion with what's part of the actual film franchise. So
just watch the first one and be done.
Watch the first two in the remake and you could probably get by. But like, I feel like that whatever that like original run of them was, I don't think there's been like a bunch of films that have like the Amityville name in them, but aren't really part of the story. So
there's a bunch of crap.
So Joe, figure it out. Use your discretion. I trust you, brother. All right.
I will say that's the first time I've actually felt bad for him, knowing some of those Amityville movies are out there.
I'll tell you, though, the Scream box set that they put out, Scream Factory box set that they put out is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Not going to say anything about the...
the content,
the contents, but they did a really good job on the presentation. All right, here we go, Scott.
3 years later, it got me. I got some kind of COVID.
OTC, obtaining the COVID.
Holy shit.
With Reverend Scott.
Insert funny clip here.
Boogity boo. There you go.
Hey there, Bill and Chris. This is
Mr. Mustache, right?
Close enough. And now that you've finished your reviews and hearing about what Joe watched, you can hear some holy shit from me.
Oh, that's the worst part.
Yeah,
that's fair. So you know the drill by now. I give some grades to your movies and reviews from last week. What are those movies again?
We are doing Smile, and we are doing the sequel to X, and I keep wanting to call it Peggy. Why do I want to keep calling it Peggy?
I don't know. Nobody's named Peggy, are they?
No. What the hell is the name of it? Paige? No. What the hell's the name of it?
X.
Why am I drawing
Pearl. There isn't even any pegging in it, so...
Oh, whoa.
And that unfortunate fact will be reflected in my grade. But first, let's talk a bit about Smile. I actually started watching Smile about a week before you reviewed it, but after about 15 minutes, I got bored and shut it off. But I've seen It Follows already, so I get the gist of it. Except instead of trying to kill you directly, it tries to get you to kill yourself, which I have to say is pretty passive-aggressive. And for some reason, unlike the masterpiece that is the Final Destination series, they decide to totally fuck up their mysterious unseen evil force and scene it.
They don't give you information in this, but they sure as fuck show you what it is. And
Yeah.
I had a hard time with that.
I probably would have too, but like I said, I didn't watch all of it. So I give it a C, and I give the review a B. So let's move on.
Yeah, why not?
Now we have the movie Bill made the absolutely embarrassing mistake of calling a sequel to X, but in reality, it's the prequel to X. Called Peggy. So, Chris, without totally giving away your thoughts on the movie, tell us a bit about the plot.
This Pearl character? Fuck that. It's just, she's boring. What? Oh, she wants to dance and she can't, so she's gonna kill people. Who fucking cares?
Masterfully done, as always. Any other thoughts?
It was boring.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Chris, how about we let Bill tell us his thoughts?
I think...
No, I don't. No. No.
Chris, come on now. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I liked it, though.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not arguing that at all.
So despite everyone going crazy about X and Pearl, they're not sounding like they'd blow my skirt up at all. Although I did like the idea of having a cannibal girlfriend.
Yeah, I got a great new girlfriend. Oh, shit. She's going to eat my body.
She's insane.
Raw.
So I give Pearl a C+, and I give the review a B+. And as far as what I've been watching, well, not a whole lot. I'm still chopping my way through God of War Ragnarok, which I've beat the story, but I gotta get all the extra shit. And it's an amazing story, by the way. And if you're interested in a pretty funny, sometimes touching show about a disgraced college men's basketball coach with a hot temper, played by the beautiful John Stamos, that now has to settle for taking over a high school girls basketball team as the only job he can get coaching, I highly suggest you check out Big Shot on your boy Disney Plus. There's 2 seasons on there now, and they're only about 30 minutes per episode. I think it's about 10 episodes this season, so you can bang out a season in a day or two pretty easy. It's not too heavy, and it's just a really enjoyable watch. There's lots of good personalities, and things don't get too crazy on that show, so, you never really feel like it's all that heavy. And sure, the concept of the toughest nails coach finding a new perspective on coaching and being a father and life in general might not be anything new, but it's fun to watch nonetheless. Plus, it's a show that even your dog will like to watch with you after he has a drink.
Oh, the dog freaking wants water.
So that's it. Big Shot on Disney Plus. I give it a B+. So that's it for this week. I need to end the segment here. I hope you're okay with that.
Okay.
But make sure you all tune in to Outside the Cinema next week when, for some reason, Bill decides to climb up on a big pile of shit.
Like, come on, get off of that shit. Ugh. Anyway, so
look forward to that and so much more shit. But until then, peace and love, guys. Holy shit with Reverend Scott.
God damn it. That is always going to piss me off.
I agree with you there, man. I agree with you there 100%. Oh, crazy. Thanks, Scott. Next week, a couple of new movies. And that's about it. Really nothing else to say. Thanks for listening. Head to Facebook. You can go on the group page. Follow Chris and I on Instagram at Cthulhu and at OTC Bill. And that's about it, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, everyone have a good week. Hopefully this show gets released when it's supposed to.